if you are not paying for the product, you are the product, period, full stop.
Yes.
And I think a lot of
I'm
people...
going to put that in captions underneath and have it blink.
No, seriously, if you are not paying for it, you're it.
Hi guys, I'm Vince Gonzalez. This is the Creative Block Podcast. I'm really excited today. We're talking to Jeanette DePattie. She is a producer, content creator, technology writer, fitness and wellness too, right?
Right. That's my side
That's very
hustle.
cool. I love it.
I have a side hustle for my side hustle.
That's the resume for every 20-year-old, I think, out there right now. I was excited to talk to you because you are a technology writer and a speaker, and you are a big fan of the Web3 space. Mm-hmm. That's fair to say, right?
That is fair.
And when did you first discover this whole thing happening?
I started writing about blockchain technology over 7 years ago. So I was really pretty early in the space. Maybe not OG status, but close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And back then I was writing about it and people kept saying, this is not a thing. And I kept saying, no, this is really going to be a thing. And I was right, as I often am, about really early emerging technologies. So I'm glad I got started when I did.
That makes me think we are going to have multiple conversations as we go forward. If that's your claim to fame, I love it.
Yeah.
This whole idea of this is a fad and this is a thing that drum is still being beaten today.
Well, yes, it's nascent. It's new, relatively new. And when you look at different kinds of technology, but I think one of the things that excited me most about this is, I'm going to date myself here, but I was around for the first Web 1 thing. You know, like I had the ASCII green computer terminal and the dumb Linux thing and the video toaster and the whole 9 yards, right? And so I saw how quickly the world changed when that web technology first started hitting. And immediately when I saw what was coming up in decentralized technology and blockchain and Web3, I was like, this is the next wave. This is the same as that other wave, except faster. I've never seen anything accelerate like this in my life. So I'm really excited about the possibilities. But yeah, that said, it's new. There's a lot of stuff that's not fully cooked yet, which is both terrifying to some people, but very exciting to me. So I would say one of the things about this technology is that, yes, if you have a weird idea and it has utility and it makes the world better in some way, yes, there's an opportunity here. But I think we're past the pets.com phase, right? We're past the just slap Web3 on it and it'll win phase. So I think there are huge opportunities, but we're at the stage now where you need to be thoughtful about what your product is and what problem it's going to solve. Because I think the sort of initial gold rush is past. That said, I've witnessed a lot of gold rushes. And what I tell people all the time is, when there's a gold rush on, be the guy that sells the shovels, right? That's the people that are going to make the money. Not necessarily, you've got a 1 in a billion chance of finding that lump of gold or starting a rock and roll band in your garage. But if you offer utility, if you offer something useful that helps people move forward, you'll have a better shot.
So let's just start with, what is Web 3.0?
Well, first of all, you have to be careful because some people say Web 3 and Web 3.0 are not the same thing. There's a number of people who say that. Some people say that Web 3.0 is the semantic web, and that's a different kind of relationship, a different kind of change to the web environment. Whereas Web 3 almost always implies that there's some sort of decentralized technology underlying it.
Gotcha.
When you get Web 3, Web 3.0, and Metaverse, you get those three terms, people will start, losing their minds. And I think the big reason is there's a lot of overlap, right? You can draw a Venn diagram that's going to have all three of these together in the center, and then they each have outlying areas. But I look at Web3 as the future of the web that involves decentralized finance and decentralized technology. And I think it is generally going to be the place where most of the metaverse lives, but not all. So that's kind of how I look at Web3. But, if you don't mind, I'd love to back up and give some even more basic definitions, right? So
Good.
all of this runs on blockchain, and people are like, what's blockchain? And I think the simplest way to understand blockchain, actually I have to credit my husband for this definition, is back in the day when we worked at fast food restaurants that didn't have like these super digital cash registers, it would keep a tab, like it would keep a receipt, a big roll of paper of everything that happened the whole day, right?
Yes.
That's your register receipt. And there's no way to just rip a piece out of the middle without it being obvious that it's been tampered with in some way. So that's one thing about blockchain, is it's an indelible record. You can't delete stuff without it being very clear that something's been deleted. So if you think about taking that receipt and multiplying it times 1,000 and sending those receipts out to 1,000 different people in the world and saying, okay, does your receipt agree with your receipt, agree with your receipt? That is decentralized. And so that's another major component of blockchain. And what's important about this is that if you think about a lot of technology, it's very centralized. There's one record and 1,000 pointers. And if you change that one record, but don't change the pointers, chances are nobody's going to know anything changed. So what happened with this technology, having these two different technology capabilities, right, indelible and decentralized, it means that there are new ways to track data, there's new ways to finance things, there's new ways to verify things and connect things. And that's what enables all of this other technology that we're going to be talking about today. But I think it's helpful to just have like that sort of basic concept of how it works.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very helpful. I appreciate you doing that. And is it fair to say that the Bitcoin white paper that came out refined that? My understanding is that there are versions of blockchain that existed before Bitcoin.
Yes.
That people were playing with.
Yes.
Satoshi comes out.
The Satoshi paper.
That's a real guy.
Right.
It comes out with a white paper, and it basically refines the process to the level that you now have something that has function.
So I would say the thing about blockchain is it's a really agnostic technology that can be used for a lot of things. What the Satoshi paper did was refine the technology as it relates to finance, as it relates to a currency, particularly Bitcoin, which is a very key element to all of this, but not the only element. And I think it's really important because a lot of people throw blockchain out with the Bitcoin bathwater. And we need to make sure that we understand that this technology does so many different things. And even if 1 or 2 or 10 people used it in a very unethical way, there are many, many wonderful and ethical applications of this technology besides cryptocurrency.
Yeah, as I went along and began to understand its function a little bit more, I realized it's likely going to touch every industry.
Oh, absolutely.
I think at some point, which is really fascinating to me because there's such an ocean of people that don't even know what it is yet.
So one of the things that I think there's a couple of reasons why people have such challenges with this. One is it's very ethereal, right? The idea of blockchain is not concrete. It's not like, right, this cup. I can touch this cup. I know what this cup does. It's pretty obvious to me. And I started my career by explaining like compression algorithms and things like this. And you're dealing with things that are difficult to perceive because they are not tangible. And I remember early on when I was raising money for my first software company, and I was explaining how video compression worked, I took out a plastic funnel and a straw and a piece of PVC pipe, and I was like, okay, this PVC pipe is your data, and this straw is your internet line, and see this funnel? That's the compression part that makes this able to flow over this. And
Wow.
suddenly, like, these three-piece suit guys were like, they were like, oh. So I think that's part of what we need to do with this technology is, as much as we can, make it concrete so people get it. Because people fear what they don't understand. And I think they not only fear it, people's times are limited. And so they're like, understanding blockchain is hard. So if a lot of people tell me I don't need to do it, then yay, I don't need to do it. But it's not really how it works, right? But I think that's the psychology a lot of people have.
It's going to be interesting to watch a lot of the big brands and labels create packaging that's could be consumed easily. It's still going to be blockchain, but you're not going to know it's blockchain.
Right. I mean, it's invisible. Like the web is invisible. You know, you use the web everywhere. You control the web with your voice, with your cell phone, with your computer, and you don't think about, oh, this is the algorithm that's running this, or this is the way this happens. It's transparent, and when technologies get sufficiently advanced, that's what happens. And I think we are already well on the way to that being the norm with blockchain and cryptocurrency and DeFi and DAOs and all of that.
Mm-hmm. So this was last on my list, but I think it dovetails based on your brilliant description. DeFi, Decentralized Finance. Let's talk about that.
So actually, it's easy to talk about decentralized finance, DeFi, and DAOs together because they're kind of brother and sister.
That was my number 3.
Right? They're kind of brothers and sisters, right?
Good.
So the idea of decentralized finance and DAOs is that we have a traditional way of doing things which is very hierarchical, right? So it's like a pyramid with the CEO at the top, and then there's a couple other layers, and then us peons below, right? And so for a long time, that's how businesses and finance has worked. There are some really serious challenges with that technique. One being that the guys at the top tend to get fat, while the guys on the bottom are getting table scraps. Another is that very often the person at the top does not have the same incentives for his behavior or her behavior, less likely her, but his behavior, than the people underneath, right? So very often that guy at the top is not driven by how will I make the business ultimately be successful. They're driven by what parameters do I need to tweak to get my signing bonus this year. And so that's a problem also with hierarchical businesses and finance. So what DeFi and DAOs tend to do is they say, look, we'll give everybody the opportunity to participate in the process. It's going to be based on how many tokens you buy, but even though larger token holders have more say in certain ways than smaller token holders, all token holders have a say in how the money is spent, how the business is run. It's all based on a vote. And those businesses that are based on a DAO and those financial companies that are based on DeFi, those decisions are the ones that run the business. So that's a big change where people have more buy-in, they have more say. And young people in particular are like, hey, this system is really slanted against me. I'm kind of screwed. And I don't like that. So they're looking for systems where they have a chance to have some power and some autonomy. And decentralized finance, DeFi, and DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, give people those opportunities.
And transparency.
And transparency, right, because every decision is made, well, not every decision, right, because that's probably would freeze most groups, but most important decisions are made by consensus, which means everybody has to know that there's a decision that needs to be made, vote on it, and see what the outcome is.
So, I've had this conversation with a traditional finance guy not that long ago, and he was unimpressed and said, well, what about FTX? And so, I think that, criminals be stealing.
What about Madoff?
It's not,
right?
right. It's drug cartels don't need Bitcoin. They were doing pretty good with cash. You know what I mean? So,
or gold.
This desire to, cheat the system will always exist. But I think the cool thing about DAOs, Pizza DAO, have you heard about Pizza DAO? And so like there's all of these things that, as silly as that sounds, the exercise of going through Pizza DAO is quite the learning experience and really tests the boundaries of possibility.
Right. But everything sounds ridiculous until it doesn't, right? The idea that you would go on the internet and order a pizza at one time was considered ridiculous. And now we do it all the time. Yeah. So I think it sounds crazy until it's not. I think that's number one. I think number two, if there's crime happening, the response is not to not have stores anymore, right? It's to figure out how to create more secure stores and how to make sure that things are transparent enough that people know when they're being scammed. I mean, a lot of people forget how when the internet first arrived in particular, so many people were scammed on the internet. And millions and billions of people are still getting scammed on the internet. Does it mean we stop having the internet because there's phishing? No. But it means that we have to apply our intelligence, and particularly our AI-infused intelligence, to come up with better ways to secure this stuff and keep it safe from wrongdoers. Because if you look at systems like Spotify and iTunes and Netflix, by and large, the ones making the money are the middleman. And that's not helping the consumer, and it's not helping the artist either. Artists are starving in many ways. NFTs were, I think, in many ways originally conceived as a way to connect artists and their fans in a one-to-one relationship that would allow more money and benefits to flow back and forth. And I think in many really positive situations, that's happening. But of course, the middlemen aren't going to lay down and let people gobble their market share quietly, right? So there's a lot of sort of middlemen approaches that are being applied in this NFT space. A lot of people think, well, NFTs are decentralized. Well, not necessarily. Well, crypto is decentralized. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes it is. Most of the time it isn't. Most of the time it's just a different kind of central bank or central moneymaker or central decider that has some sort of DeFi dress up on it. It's like a DeFi hat, but it's not really DeFi in its implementation. And I think that's a big wave that we're going to see moving forward, is that people are looking for utility. What does the decentralized technology get for me? What is the benefit I derive from that? Why should I care? And I think companies who are looking to get into that space, like I said at the beginning, this is a number one central thing you need to be thinking about right now. Not how can I make it sexy and shiny, not what's going to be the picture in my next drop. It's how can I make something that somebody needs? How can I solve a problem that people care about? And I think that's where Web 1.0 exploded. Web 2.0, we went in a really not so happy direction. And Web 3.0, I'm hoping that us Gen Xers and the Gen Zers are going to get together and fix it. That's my goal.
Yeah. And, it's funny because in the last year, I've gone to a bunch of conferences and listened to speakers, and, this term Web 2.5 came out, and I thought, oh my God, people are going to make billions in 2.5. I mean, this onboarding process where it's taking, people that are older than us that will never really understand it, but will find useful consumer products. I could just see a lot of people making a lot of money onboarding.
Yeah, you're not going to know if it's Web 2.5 or Web 3 a lot of times because it's just going to be under the hood.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about transparency, this is a place that in Web 2.0 we went very wrong, right? If you are not paying for the product, you are the product, period, full stop.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people...
I'm going to put that in captions underneath and have it blink.
No, seriously, if you are not paying for it, you're it. You're it. Your data, your time, your energy, something is being taken from you in exchange for that service. And what is being taken from you often is not clear. What is being done with the stuff that's taken from you is incredibly unclear. And we've gotten into a very unhealthy place where corporations and big government know way more about me than I want them to. Mm-hmm. And I think, there was this idea of millennials don't care. Well, maybe they didn't, but Gen Z does care. And I think Gen X does care. And there's some people in the middle that care, right? But I think there's those of us who remember the web before it got icky. And those of us who are new and are like, well, we're making something new, let's not make it icky, that there's a possibility now for something much better to happen. I think millennials have made amazing changes in the world. And what they've done to surface questions about the environment, to surface questions about how government is not serving them particularly well, I think it's amazing. I just think because of when millennials came along, their sensitivity to the data that they were sharing is less than the other groups. Believe me, I think millennials and, X, Y, Z, Gen, all those folks have played an important part. I just feel like they're a little less aware of their whole data being exploited thing.
Yeah. They were born into an age where it was almost normalized. You just give it up.
It wasn't just normalized. It was a requirement to be in society, in their groups. Yeah. You couldn't really opt out and still get along in school and most places because, I think that's the thing that makes me the most angry about all of it is that they manipulated the weakest in terms of their own autonomy, their own ability to protect themselves. They took advantage of that group in a way that was almost impossible for them to ignore. And
that's a great observation. I really love that conversation because I never really considered that before, but that's absolutely true when you say that. It makes total sense.
Yeah, I remember with my nieces, I'm like, what do you mean they're getting a smartphone? They're only like 11. Why do they need a smartphone? And my sister's like, because otherwise they'll be a social pariah. And I was like, oh, I never really thought of it. Because in our generation growing up, we grew up without smartphones. And when they came, they were considered a luxury. Like, this is something
absolutely
fancy. True. But for that generation, it was absolutely mission critical. And you could take away their bike or even their driver's license, just don't take their phone.
All right. So we got through all of them. But we're going to end up with the last one. Tell me how you explain to my 65-year-old grandfather what an NFT is.
So an NFT can be a number of different things. And I think it's easier to think about it in terms of some of the use cases than to understand it in the abstract. So good. One way that I explain NFTs is, when you go to Disney World and you get those pins that you put on your lanyard, that you've collected. So in some ways, NFTs are collectibles. They're like baseball cards. They're like those pins that you put on, at the Olympics, you exchange pins, right? They're collectibles. But they're collectibles that, number one, you can prove absolutely whether it's authentic or not. And number two, you can sell digitally, right? So you don't have to get to a baseball card swap meet. Another way to think of an NFT is a ticket. Sometimes an NFT gives you entrance to things, whether it's a special concert or conference, or a backstage pass, or, the ability to get free dumplings at the local dumpling shop, whatever it is. Sometimes it's more of a ticket. It's also like fine art in a way, or fine wines, in that sometimes it can become very valuable, and sometimes it's not valuable at all. And sometimes you buy a wine and you think you paid, $18 for it. 20 years from now, it could be worth less than nothing because there's just dead, awful stuff in the bottle. It might be worth $1,000. You don't know. And so there's sort of that speculative aspect of it too. But I like to use those analogies because I think they're more tangible and concrete.
I like that. I use the baseball card analogy a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And or the other argument I have all the time is people say, well, it's a JPEG, and you can prove that you own it. And
I call that
well, I can copy a JPEG.
So
I'm like, you can.
I call that, it's just a JPEG, is the boomer bump, right? Whenever I'm explaining technology or Bitcoin or NFTs, there's the boomer bump, and it's always that phrase. Well, it's just a JPEG. Why am I paying, $20,000 for a JPEG? And I say you pay $20,000 for a JPEG for the same reason that you pay $50,000 a year to be a member of the Jonathan Club, right? It puts you in with a sort of unique, catered group of people that all have the means to spend that kind of money. So that tells you something about them, and all have the interest in spending money that way. So it's kind of like a yacht club. They call it the Bored Ape Yacht Club because that's what it is. You don't join a yacht club because you have a yacht. You join a yacht club because you want to rub elbows with other rich people. So that's kind of how it works.
Wow.
That's what I tell them. But I also know that it takes most people 2 or 3 times for me to have that explanation to get over the boomer bump. And the further past the boomer bump you are in age, the more numbers of times and it's not because it has nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with experience and
absolutely
and how you can perceive the world. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is so fundamentally a different way to think about how we're advancing,
mm-hmm.
that people that are very used to a way and have had success in it, I understand completely how hard it is to wrap my mind. It was a challenge for me personally because I was like, I thought I was special because I found the Bitcoin white paper, and like 2 sentences in, I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. So, 10 hours of YouTube later, I'm like, oh, okay. So
it took me longer. I'll be honest. Yeah. I mean, when I started studying blockchain technology about 7+ years ago, I was very, very bullish on blockchain technology. I was very, very skeptical about NFTs. And it took me a while. And it took me talking to some people that I really deeply respect, who had the patience to sit me down and say, well, it's not what you think. So I was initially a very much a skeptic when it came to cryptocurrency and NFTs. And I still think that there are applications of both of those things that are really stupid.
Sure.
But those technologies as a whole are not stupid, and I see the value now.
Yeah. This isn't on my list, but it came to me before, and I'm starting to really dive into this because I think it's going to explode. What do you think about music and decentralized music NFTs, things like that? Snoop Dogg famously said when he acquired Death Row Records that he was intent on making much of the product available through Web3. And so I think that's really fascinating. And I think from especially musicians who historically don't reap the benefits of their original content, this is potentially very, very exciting.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm consulting with two companies that are working in DeFi and music, and I think there is a big future there. Just a couple statistics. There's like 30 million artists on Spotify. There are 13,000 of them that make over $50,000 a year out of 300 million, right? It's insane. Spotify is making billions of dollars. The CEO is making billions of dollars, but the musicians on that platform are doing very poorly. Not to mention the fact that the audiences are not being served well because they're being served the same pablum over and over, and discoverability of something new and exciting on that platform is very, very difficult. So I think that there are huge opportunities in terms of music discovery, in terms of musicians getting paid better, in terms of artists connecting more deeply with their fans in more meaningful ways. I absolutely believe that's a huge opportunity. I don't think anybody's quite nailed it yet. I think there's some things that have been done, but it's a lot of sort of, we'll connect with musicians and make NFTs, and that's not enough. It's a start, but we have to go a lot further, I think, before we're going to overturn what's currently happening. But the big incentive, first of all, Snoop Dogg is brilliant, a brilliant, brilliant man. I mean, one of the most intelligent technologists and branders and marketers that I've ever seen in my life. But second of all, musicians are hungry, literally hungry, because they can't pay their bills. So there's a strong incentive for them to do the work to find something new to fix their situation.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's going to be music, fashion, games, crypto. This is where the front runners are. I think film is coming. I think books are coming. But I think music, fashion, and games are the big drivers right now.
I love it. I could have this conversation all day long. I love it. It's very cool. You're really, really great. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Tell where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm /Tech-Splainer, TECH.
I love
Splainer.
that. Tech-Splainer.
And I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not really recording. I'm so busy doing crypto stuff and Web3 stuff that I'm not talking about it as much these days. But I do have Jeanette DePattie and YouTube channel. And that's where to find me. You can follow what I'm doing on LinkedIn, and that's where you're going to find out where I'm speaking and writing and doing all that jazz.
Yeah. So I would say to the audience, because I've been looking at these, I've recently just discovered you, but watching the articles coming out from your LinkedIn feed. And I would say anybody who's, interested in having an understanding, just follow Jeanette on LinkedIn.
And you know what? If you want me to come to your business and tell them what the heck this is all about, and I'll bring Legos and plastic coins and all the things. I'll make it fun.
Love it.
Just connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can hire me to come out for the day, and I
love it.
They will leave not only understanding, but caring. So that's what I do.
I love it. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. This has been incredible.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.